These my dollars make it hurt.
Welcome back. It's the Deep Cover Podcast. It is Kerry Stevenson, Chris Aguilera, Mike Crawford. Yeah, you can hear the excitement in my voice because I'm excited to see my guys. I'm excited to see my brothers. I'm not down about injuries or overtime losses or any of that stuff, man. I'm just, whenever I see these two guys, man, I get excited. We get to chop it up. We get to talk about football, get to talk about life. Uh, so that's always a good thing in my book. Uh, so let's just check in with both of you guys before we get into looking back at the Raiders game, maybe do a little preview on the Chiefs. We'll talk about injuries just because it's a thing. You got to talk about them. And then we'll see where it leads us. So start with you, Kerry. How you been, man?
I'm good, man. Just enjoying football while we got it. Uh, Want to do a little bookkeeping, kind of throw this out there. So I don't know if you guys do anything on Underdog, but they got the those pick'ems, those like prop betting kind of contests. So I did one for Monday night, did four, got three of them, missed one. Tyson Williams, I went over on 65 and a half yards rushing. He ended up with 65 yards rushing.
Oh my God.
Had a chance to 10x, man. So
Oh,
Greg Roman, John Harbaugh, I don't know who I need to send the invoice to. Y'all decide amongst yourselves who getting it, but I intend on getting my money. So
You got to go
one of
knocking
y'all
on
get
some
this invoice.
doors.
Got to. But yeah, man, I've been good other than that, man. Just glad to be back with y'all.
that's crazy, man. All you had to do was give him one more carry. You would have 10x that thing. That is crazy, man. Good Lord. Well, hey, like you said, we heard today, right? We know who we need to address this to because he was at his presser today talking about, hey, we're gonna rotate backs. We're not gonna have anyone back in there all the time, right? So who you need to address your grievances to.
True.
That's all good. Hey, look, we understand that's the modern NFL. Go rotate backs. Nobody's going to be that 30 carry a game running back anymore. We all understand that. But when my man is a yard away, a half a yard away from 10x, come on, Greg. You know what to do.
Yeah.
I know they got people listening. Y'all know what to do.
Yeah, man, you got to hit those overs, Greg.
Come on, G-Ron. Get your man. Anyway, Chris, how you been, man?
I'm good, man. Happy to be with you guys as usual. Got my new microphone, so I'm good to go. I got my little Lamar candle here. Light it up, make sure Lamar's healthy for the year, for the rest of the season. Got it lit up for the whole year because we cannot lose Lamar.
No. Hey, you got him covered. You got him covered right there, baby. I light that thing up each game. We've had a rash of injuries. We heard, was it today or was it yesterday? The news about Ronnie Stanley perhaps being out, not just for the Sunday night game against the Chiefs, but maybe even for a little bit more time. I don't know if anything has been official about that. Obviously, he was on the injury report. I think it was Jason Lockenfora who reported that he might be out for longer. But obviously the team is not gonna give too much about that at this time. But that's a bummer. Obviously, they missed Ronnie for a big chunk of last year. You got him back. Played a little bit in that last preseason game. Played the entire game Monday night, and I don't know. I don't know if it was a setback, ankle, just like you said, Chris, earlier. Ankle just maybe wasn't fully healed or completely ready. Needed a little more time. I don't know what it was, but
they said it was a physical and also mental issue too. So it's that's big because one of the main things when it comes to injuries is how does the player feel coming back? It's not always is it healed all the way. It's like does the player trust himself physically and that's a mental hurdle that sometimes overlooked too, and that's something that we heard about with Cortland Sutton this year, where he wasn't going up and jumping for the ball. Like If it was high, he was just letting it sail. Because he didn't trust his surgically repaired knee. And I mean, it could be the same thing with Rodney, where he's not trusting that ankle right now. It's just not feeling right for him. We don't quite know, but I give them props. I don't know who made the call, whether if it was him or the staff, but I give them props for recognizing it and just giving him the proper time to get right.
Yeah, that's a really important point. That mental part, probably you said it, really more important than even the physical part, um, because your body can be physically fine, but if your mind is not trusting it and you don't have the confidence that you had before, then it doesn't matter, what condition your body is in. So I'm glad you said that. That's not something that we think about often with that kind of thing. But let's switch gears a little bit and look back at that Raiders game. It was an exciting game. Um, I was talking with Denard Melton, friend of the show, on the Fire Zone show the other night about how it was just a fun game to watch. I mean, yeah, obviously I wanted the Ravens to win, so I was, it's not the outcome that I wanted, but just from a watchability standpoint, an entertainment standpoint, that's what you want to see. You want to see a good game, right? You want to see back and forth, overtime, big plays, that ending, right? Crazy. The ending of the game, at the fourth quarter, at the end
Well,
of the
it
fourth.
was done, then it wasn't done.
And I mean, you can't beat it for entertainment value. But I'll start with you, Chris. What did you think about the game? Again, this is kind of our clean slate segment. You can open run. Let's call it that. We'll call this the open run segment. You can go anywhere you want to with your thoughts on the game.
Well, I didn't find it entertaining. I don't like those games. I do not like those games one bit. If it's a different team, then fine. But when it's the Ravens, I do not like those games. But it was disappointing, man. It was really disappointing because I thought that was a game where I didn't think they were going to blow them out in any way. But I thought it would be a game, kind of like the way the almost all of the first half went, where it's 14-zip. And it's like, all right, we kind of put this on cruise control. It looks like it's going to be a good night. But, then that second half happened. And not even the second half, to the end of the first half, where I think it was they scored 10 unanswered points to close out the first half. And, it seemed like the defense just never recovered after that. And, we've been talking about it, how Gruden had Derek Carr and those guys ready to go. He had them because every button they pushed, it was working. He saw every blitz that was coming, and he knew where to go with the ball. And hats off to them because you could tell that they prepared their asses off for this defense because you don't see quarterbacks, quarterback of that caliber. No disrespect to Derek Carr, but he's no Pat Mahomes. He's no Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, those kind of quarterbacks that you see just carve up a Ravens defense. And he was able to look comfortable and just get the ball to where it needed to be. And props to them. There's some major work to be done as far as the offense. I mean, well, the offense, they did their thing too. The offense, they came out. You look at the numbers. I mean, just plain look at the numbers. They did fairly well for losing their starting left guard, for having the amount of guys that are injured. They did a pretty good job. But the defense, man, that's the part where I cannot get over the defense. I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, they had a good first quarter and a good third quarter. Scoreless first quarter and a scoreless third quarter. And then, like you said, gave up those 10 in the second and then 17 in the fourth. Very uncharacteristic for a Ravens defense. At Yoshi 2052 on Twitter said it was reminiscent of that Titans game, regular season Titans game from 2020. I think it was like week 11 or something like that, where, basically a bunch of Titans put up a bunch of points in the fourth quarter and then kind of had that walk off at the end. So it did kind of feel like that at the end, which again is just not really characteristic of the Ravens defense. But, you said it, Gruden was in his bag and their offensive line. I got to give credit to the Raiders offensive line because I think coming in, I was looking at them and I'm thinking, okay, their starting left guard is out in incognito. Their center, Andre James, I don't know, I think he played in 2 games last year. something like that. He's a young guy. Denzel Good, right guard, kind of a career sort of journeyman, solid, but more of a journeyman type guy. And then a rookie right tackle, Leatherwood at right tackle out of Alabama, good looking prospect, obviously, but still a rookie. And Colton Miller is solid at left tackle, right? He kind of has settled into that role after kind of a bumpy start as a rookie. And John Simpson, my man, nasty John Simpson at left guard. But again, inexperienced, a guy who doesn't have a ton of experience. And I thought they played relatively well overall. And then Denzel Good went out early, and Jermaine Illuminor had to come in. Ravens remember that name, and he was solid from the time that he came in. So, credit to them, because I think I was looking at it on paper, and as Eric Rocker tweeted out in the week, he was talking about college football, not the NFL, but he was talking about the rating system, right? Coming out of high school, all the stars, 4-star, 5-star. He's like, look, when we get on the field, all that star BS go out the window. It's you versus me. This is all that matters, right? None of that rating stuff matters. And it's like that all the time, even at the NFL level. I mean, they don't have that star rating, but you got PFF grades or whatever other grading system, and people can get into, okay, this player is better than that player, on Twitter or wherever. But when they get on that field, it's me versus you. None of that other stuff matters, and they held their own. So credit to them. Kerry, let me go to you then. What do you think coming away from that game? What were your thoughts about what you saw out there? Take it wherever you want.
Yeah, I think the first thing for me is that I clearly underestimated how much this offensive line group needed live reps together in an important game. Um, because if going into it, like Chris said, I wasn't expecting them to necessarily blow the Raiders out, but I'm looking at their defense, and I think they were like 25th in adjusted sack rate last year. And Monday night, I mean, Max Crosby looked like Howie Long out there. Like they couldn't block him at all. But when you really think about it, Ronnie Stanley was in his first, real live game action. Zeitler missed a bunch of time and training camp. Tyree Phillips is out there, for the first time with this group at left guard. Then he ended up getting hurt. Villanueva, we don't talk about this because he's such a vet, but he's playing a different position than he played his whole career. Switching over to that right side. So, I don't really think it's fair to kind of gloss over these things. Like these are all things that need to be worked out, and they get worked out by actually playing on the field and going through this stuff and making the mistakes and learning from them and kind of gelling as a group. So, that was my big takeaway is that, hey, this piece of it is probably going to take some time. And now it's probably going to take a little bit more time where Ronnie, missing time. So, that was one of my big takeaways. And, other than that, a little disappointed with the defense, but like you guys said, you have to take your hat off to Gruden and the Raiders. They were uber prepared for this Ravens pass rush, and like you said, looking at the offensive line of the Raiders going in, I mean, they dismantled that offensive line in the offseason. With Rodney Hudson being traded and Trent Brown being traded, and I mean, they were like self-sabotaging a group is what it looked like. But, these guys held up, man. Like you said, your guy Simpson at left guard, he was out there, moving some furniture out there. And, those guys held up well, man. So, it's easy to kind of look at things too big picture and start thinking about, the Super Bowl and all these different things. But, if you just, take that shorter approach and say, hey, man, this is one of 17 and, they have some work to do. But, they got some guys coming, Bateman and, Ben Cleveland once he gets up to speed. They got some reinforcements coming. So, it's nothing to get too panicked about.
No, definitely not. And, you hear it all the time about how the NFL is a week to week league. And you can say that's coach speak or cliche, but to me, it's real. It's a real thing because we see it every season where you go into a game and it looks like there's no way one team should be able to compete, let alone beat another team because of injuries or whatever else is going on. Their record leading into that game, maybe they lost a bunch in a row, and then they win. Right, it happens every year in the NFL, and it happens multiple times throughout a season. So,
Perfect example is the 2020 Titans.
yeah, there you
That's
go.
the
Yeah.
perfect example.
Yep. Yeah, you look at that game, right? 14-2 in the regular season, and that result wasn't supposed to happen. But it did.
Yeah.
So that just shows you how true that phrase really is. It really is week to week. It is any given Sunday. Use whatever one you want, but at the heart of it, the fact that anything can happen in any one game is true. And hey, look, I know we're a Ravens fans, but hey, I respect good play. So you mentioned him, carry credit to Max Crosby, man. I mean, he was out there
Oof.
giving work to pretty much whoever he lined up against. And also, a lot like Darren Waller, he's a guy who struggled and had addiction issues. He talked about um, being addicted to alcohol. And actually, in 2020, I think it was in March, it was after the season, he actually checked himself in to a rehab program and went through the program, got clean. I think just recently he had celebrated like 18 months clean, 18 months sober. And
Yeah.
he said, he really kind of recommitted himself to the game and his nutrition and his fitness. And obviously, he had some injuries too. I think in 2020, I think he uh, maybe had a shoulder issue and then a wrist issue or hamstring, something like that. Uh, and so he kind of took a little bit of a step back from his rookie season in 2019. But then, I mean, last night it looked like it was all back, and some stuff was added. What was there
Mhm.
in 2019 was back, and then he added some new stuff too. Credit to him, man, for putting on the show that he put on.
And
And man,
he was playing like he should have been the fourth overall pick instead of Cleveland Farrell.
yeah, man,
Yeah.
that man was on a mission. So good, good for him. Like I said, I always want to highlight guys and give credit to guys
Yeah.
who put in that kind of work and have to overcome, just life. Wasn't even just about football. I mean, he was struggling with stuff that people struggle with every day, in terms of addiction. So credit to
And,
him.
and that's basically how we started this podcast, is where we want to humanize these guys and not just, they're a robot or they're, just characters on in Madden. These are real guys that have real problems just like everybody else. Doesn't matter if they're millionaires, doesn't matter if they have nice cars, nice houses, they got the same problems.
Yeah. But then they got to deal with their problems in such a public way.
Hmm.
Right.
Most of us at least have the some level of privacy that not too many, in some cases nobody knows about whatever you're struggling with. These guys, it's going to get out there eventually. Like he said that he was able to kind of keep it under wraps. I mean, I didn't realize this. He had gone back to college. He had gotten in an accident, wrecked his car, had a DUI back in college, um, and that kind of affected his draft stock a little bit. And he said he made a deal with his college coach back then because he knew he was going to get suspended. And I think one of the next, and I think he said coach said it was going to be a 2-game suspension, and one of those 2 games was going to be Purdue. And so he was like, "Look, that was going to be a big game." He wasn't. Why did I say Michigan State? He wasn't at Michigan State. He was at some smaller school than that.
Might have been
But that was
Eastern.
there. You go, Eastern Michigan. That's what I was saying. So that was going to be a big game. He knew that, right? He's telling his coach, he's like, "Look, this is big in terms of scouts being there and all of that. They want to see us going up against a school like that because we don't get many opportunities to play big schools." And so I think he was able to work out a deal with his coach. Where this is going to sound bad, but I think they ended up reducing it to 1 game, so he didn't have to miss that Purdue game. But the deal was, this is it, right? No more drinking. Um, you know, you're gonna have to do some community service stuff. I think they added in some kind of testing. I don't want to say it was alcohol. I don't know exactly what it was, but some kind of testing. And he said he was able to meet all of that for the rest of that season. And then it wasn't until after he got drafted that he kind of started drinking again because he said, "Hey, you get drafted, you're on the team. You want to be one of the guys. You don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, I can't go out because of X, Y, or Z." And he kind of got back into it, and then he said he kind of lost control of it again. So it's a tough thing to deal with for anybody. And I'm happy for him, man, that he was kind of able to come out the other side of it and still able to pursue his dream. So good for him. But
Man,
let me get you guys. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
yeah, no, I just want to go back to what you guys were saying, just about taking it week by week, because that's not something that I really thought of, because it's just when you lose your left tackle and your left guard, and you already have Marcus Peters on IR, all the damn running backs on IR, Nick Boyle still not playing. It's easy to get into doom and gloom mode, but we could be in a position where, let's say week 8, week 10, we have a lot of those guys back. Ronnie could be back. Phillips could be back. Boyle could be back. Bateman could be back. And who knows how the injury bug goes? We don't know. We don't know if this is the worst it'll be. But I mean, they could be in a position later on down the road if they just hold the fort down for a little bit. Maybe not look the best, but they hold the fort down, and then in the middle of the season, then you got all these guys coming back, and then it's like, okay, now we could get rolling, and then they could maybe get hot and go on one of those runs. So it's not all
Absolutely.
doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom.
Definitely not. Too early for that. Way too early for that. Like you said, we all understand the magnitude of the injuries, particularly the guys who are out for the year. Key players, key players on this team. So we understand all of that. But this is why that evaluation process throughout the offseason and into the preseason is so important. And people talk about some of these back end of the roster guys and, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not that important. This is exactly why it does matter and exactly why it is important, because these situations happen. Now, it's hit a little bit harder for the Ravens than it has hit in recent years, but this is why that process is so critical, because you've got to have guys that you feel confident enough in to be able to come in and play. And John Harbaugh, he said it during one of their Ravens Wired things where he was speaking to the team. It was back during the preseason, and he was saying it was before the final cuts. And I think he was saying, look, every one of you guys in here, regardless of what happens after cut down day, can play in this league. There's not anybody in here that can't play in this league. And he said, I can't say that every year. Sometimes there's guys that really don't have a place in the league. But he was like, everyone in this room this year can play in this league. And so, being able to have that kind of depth, and you and I, the three of us talked about it when we did our roster prediction show with Coach and Denard, like how not just how much depth they had, but the quality of the depth that they had, and why it was so difficult to make those choices to get down to the 53 this year. And this is where you hope that pays off for you, because now you need it, right? You guys just aren't there, and you're hoping you can sprinkle them in gradually and use them in different packages. Now they got to play, right? They got to get out on the field. They got to play. So that is absolutely critical. But before we move on from the Raiders game, so we do want to talk a little bit about the Chiefs. Of course, that's only a couple of days ago. I wanted to hit you both with at least two things that I saw a lot of people either complaining about or just questioning it, or wondering, is this something to really be concerned about, or was it just a one game thing? So I'll start with you, Kerry. Here's the first thing, and you both talked about it in your comments, but I just want to kind of drill down on it a little bit. The pass rush, right, and specifically the 4-man pass rush, right? People know that Wink likes to send pressure. I know the Ravens can make things difficult for quarterbacks when they bring pressure, but they didn't bring a ton of pressure on Monday night. They did a lot of 4-man rush, and I think there was a narrative out there. Maybe it's not a narrative. Maybe it's true, but there were people who were concerned about that 4-man pass rush, even with the addition of guys like Justin Houston and drafting Adafe Owe, getting Campbell back healthy. It looked like they were able to generate much pressure on Carr. What did you think about the pass rush? Were you concerned, or do you look at it as, hey, it's one game, guys kind of still getting used to working together and kind of feeling their way? Or what was your take on it?
Yeah, I think I'm probably somewhere in the middle on that. I mean, you definitely want to see them be able to generate more pressure, but I think you hit on one key thing is a lot of these guys, with Houston and Oweh, a lot of these guys this is their first game with the Ravens. So, that's something that's take into account. And then another guy to me that's big in stunning and twisting and that kind of game freeing guys up is Derek Wolf. Not having him out there is kind of critical, man. When you really look at the way this team wants to play, not having him out there to kind of facilitate some of those things, wasn't great either. But I think when you look at this over the long haul, it'd be one thing if this was just a veteran laden group that maybe didn't have an upward trajectory. But I mean, you just look at Oweh alone, and I mean, what couldn't he do? You know, it's gonna be scary looking at this guy. By week 12, week 13, once he figures some more things out. I mean, that alone, like, if this guy's like a full on game record by the end of the season, I would not be surprised at all. So you got to factor that in. I think Justin Houston is going to be, better in time. Getting Wolf back is definitely going to help. So I would say, like I said, I'm somewhere in the middle. I would want to see a little bit more pressure than what we saw, but I'm also not going to panic about it.
Yeah, man. Oweh. I mean,
Hmm.
you could have your own little show on how he played. I mean, look, uh, it's raw right now. I think anybody watching could see that. There's definitely some technique stuff there and some refinement there, which is to be expected. Considering kind of his background at Penn State, and then also just being a rookie. But just in terms of raw ability, I mean, you saw the effect that he had, and he's still, like you said, really trying to figure some things out. When he starts to put it together and things start to slow down, man, watch out. It is it is going to be something.
Yeah.
And Dalen Hayes didn't play in that game. Dalen Hayes, who showed a nice little pass rush
Hmm.
repertoire, little toolbox in the preseason, and I think they didn't have him in this game, and he could have given them another piece in that rotation to spell some of those guys, because Denard and I talk about that too. Anytime you got to rush 55, 60 times, I don't care how good your pass rushers are, that's
Yeah.
going to take a toll on anybody, because Denard said, you might have 25, maybe 30 good get offs in you as a pass rusher, maybe 30. And he's like, 30 is like on the high end. Like if you're in the flow, right? All the pass rush stuff's working and you're just feeling it. You might have 30, 35 of those, but he's like, nobody's got 60. We haven't created the person that's got 60 good get offset in the game. But let me go to you on that one, Chris. What did you think about the pass rush, 4-man rush? Did you have any concerns about any of that?
No, I didn't really have any concerns really about it. Not that it was great, but this is something Denard brought up last year when we had him on the podcast, and he said it always takes time for the defensive line to gel together. We always think about the offensive line gelling together, but it's the defensive line too that has to gel together, because, like Kerry said, when we broke down the film when Derek Wolf was signed, we saw him and Von Miller playing those games perfectly, and you could see that they were just always in sync. Wolf knew when Vaughn was going to come. Vaughn knew when Wolf was going to take on his guy. So there are certain games and certain factors that come into play when it's the defensive line. We just think it's all right, just go beat this guy and you're good. But it's so much deeper than that. It's you have to know what the guy next to you is doing. You have to have a feel for that and get used to it. And a lot of these guys, they haven't been together. Outside of Calais, outside of Brandon Williams, a lot of these guys haven't been together. Justin Houston, he hasn't been there that long. Always a rookie. So it takes time. It takes some time. But now, if we're in week 6 and week 7 and we're seeing some of the stuff, then be a little panic. But not in week 1.
That's where I'm at too. Like if it is a consistent issue as we get deeper into the season, then yeah, I'm gonna feel differently about it. But you guys hit on all of the really valid reasons why you're not concerned that much, why I'm not concerned. And I'm not going to bore people with the numbers because I did some charting on some of the stuff because I was just curious about it myself. But man, the Raiders and their help system, how you help your offensive line in pass protection, um, running backs, chipping guys coming out of the backfield, chipping edge rushers, as they come out of the backfield and release into a pass route. Tight ends, chipping guys, tight ends staying in the block. Like there's a lot of 6 and 7 man pass protection. Lining players up, aligning players in a position like tighter splits, closer to the tackle, where now these edge rushers have to adjust their alignment. And even if that guy doesn't actually touch you as he releases on his route, you got to see him, right? You can't you can't like not look at him, right? Especially if he's chipped you earlier in the game. And now you're thinking, was he gonna chip me? Is he not gonna chip me? All of that can affect the mental part of what you're trying to do and the physical part as well. And then combine that with um, a lot of the quick game concepts that they were running where, the play is designed to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand, 3-step drop. Carr was getting it out quick in a lot of those situations. So it's just hard to get an effective pass rush when you've got all of that sort of going. And it goes back to what both of you guys said about the Raiders preparation, credit to them for putting that kind of help package together. And one other thing I wanted that I saw in my charting, I think I mentioned this on Twitter, is the Raiders, excuse me, using a lot of heavier personnel, right? Fullback, 2 tight ends, and defense has to kind of match, right? In some kind of way, you have to match that personnel. And on the defensive line, what the Ravens were doing is when they would have those 2 tight ends, sometimes even 3 tight ends, and a fullback in the game, they would bring in an extra D tackle, or two. So they would have 3 defensive tackles on the field, and then an edge rusher, DN type of body. So it was usually Brandon Williams, Matabike, and then the third guy rotated between Broderick Washington and Justin Ellis. And no slight to those guys, but that's going to take a little juice out of your pass rush. I mean, I think people see Matabike as a guy that's got some explosiveness in terms of being able to rush on the interior, but those other big dudes, it's not the same kind of juice, right? When you take a Calais Campbell off the field, where you take a Pernell McPhee off the field, it's just not the same kind of juice. But all of that was part of the plan for the Raiders to use those sets and then throw out of those sets, right? I mean, he throwing routes in the flat to the fullback. So this was all part of the plan for them, and they executed it. That's the thing that the second part of the plan that I think you really have to give them credit for. It's great to have a plan, but like Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan until they get hit. The Raiders were able to actually execute the plan. Now, it wasn't that they just had a good plan. They actually executed it really well. And the Ravens never really pushed them to get off of that plan too far. I think every now and then they maybe had to kind of go in a slightly different direction with some of the stuff they called. Maybe they wanted to call something else. But for the most part, they were able to stay kind of on their script, I think, that they wanted to stay on. So I won't. There was one other one I want to hit you on before we move on to the Chiefs. I won't go back to the offensive line because I think you both covered that already. But Lamar, particularly Lamar in the passing game and holding the ball, right? I saw this out there. He's holding the ball too long. He's got to get the ball out of his hands. He's pump faking. Why is he pump faking? Why isn't he just getting the ball out on time? And some people saying that contributed to some of the pressure issues that he was experiencing. I'll start with you on this one, Chris. What did you have any concerns about that? Do you think that there's something there, or do you think there could maybe be other things that explained it? How do you feel about it?
Well, so when we initially spoke about it, I just chalked it up to uh, not having enough time with these guys because he missed a chunk of time. A bunch of the wide receivers missed a chunk of time. So that the timing, the rhythm, the anticipation, the trust, it gets thrown off when you miss all of that time. And I feel like there was some of those windows where he wanted to throw it, but he just like that. You sent a picture of a screenshot of when he wanted to throw the ball, but Hollywood wasn't looking. And I feel like maybe if they have that time together during training camp, he trusts that Hollywood will get his head around in time, and he could just lay that ball out there in front of him. But at this point, week one, being as rusty as he is and as rusty as some of the wide receivers are as far as timing is concerned, I think we saw some of that creep in with some of those pump fakes and him just kind of second guessing himself real quick.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think that maybe happened a little bit more than people realize. But Kerry, let me go to you on that. Did you have any concerns in terms of that thought about Lamar holding the ball, not getting the ball out on time?
No, I really didn't, man. It's one of those things where when you look at it, there's two other guys in the league that have a propensity for kind of holding on to the ball a little bit too long. Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. But it really doesn't come up until, there's a too many sacks or a fumble or whatever the case may be. But we don't talk about all the other times where these guys may have held the ball a little bit too long, but they make plays downfield, or they get in the open field and they make a guy miss. It comes with the territory of having a player as talented as he is that can make these kind of plays. You extend that trust to them to make the right play, make the right decision. And sometimes that just leads to them holding on to the ball a little bit too long. I don't really have full trust in Lamar as far as his ability to kind of find that balance and trust that he's gonna be able to put everything together and make plays. So to me, it's honestly a non-issue.
Yeah, people didn't seem to have an issue with it on that touchdown pass to Hollywood. I mean, he's got to avoid, a couple guys in the backfield, and he's scrambling, sprinting out to his right, extending, and he finds Hollywood. I think you named, those guys in Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. Russell Wilson, by the way, if anybody watched the feed of the game, the broadcast of the game with Peyton and Eli, they had a couple different guests that rolled through there with them during that feed. They had Charles Barkley on there. They had Ray Lewis on there, Travis Kelce, and they had Russell Wilson for the fourth quarter. He ended up staying through the whole fourth quarter and into overtime. That dude was calling stuff like Tony Romo. I mean, he could walk into a booth today, I think, and become like the number one guy on any broadcast team, if that's what he wanted to do. Obviously, he still has, a lot of good football left into him. But man, he was calling stuff out like crazy because we're all in a Twitter chat, and I was sharing some of the stuff that he was saying with you guys, and then it was happening on the field. I was like, this dude is calling out all kinds of stuff. So that was really kind of entertaining. But yeah, to both of your point about Lamar, there is a balance in there, obviously, between sort of staying within the timing and the structure of a play and getting the ball out within that framework. But then you don't want to coach the playmaker out of guys like that. That's what got them here. That's what makes them who they are, is that playmaking ability, that natural, just instinctive ability. You don't want to coach that out of them. So I think you're going to have to live with some of that when there are legitimate cases where it's him holding the ball too long. He's got a guy open. He's got protection. The guy's ready for the ball. Everything is set, and he doesn't get the ball out. Look, when that happens, then yeah, those are legitimate things that you probably want to work on as his coaches and he himself. Obviously, these guys go back and watch themselves and critique themselves, but you can't take that playmaker out of him. I wouldn't even try. I'd be like, nah, man, you do your thing. You ain't got nothing to say to you, man. Keep doing what you're doing out there. So unless you guys, I'll throw it out there before we move on. Either one of you want to hit on anything else on the Raiders game before we wrap that one up? No,
I'm good. I'm good, man. I want to move on and put it in the rear view mirror already.
All right. Yeah, it's in the rear view. We're putting that thing and we're moving on. And we're moving on to Kansas City, coming in to the bank, Sunday Night Football. And I think I saw a tweet today about their practice report. Total opposite end of the spectrum from the Ravens. All 53 guys practicing today for Kansas City Chiefs. So all systems are go there and looking good. And they're going to, get a couple of guys back, it looks like, this week. Tyrann Mathieu will be back this week. He didn't play last week. against the Browns. So hey, that's how it goes with injuries. Sometimes you're up, sometimes another team is down, and sometimes that flips around. But they faced the Chiefs. Obviously, the last couple of years hasn't gone their way, but they've all been competitive games. We're in town last year in a prime time game, but no fans in the stadium. So this is going to be a different atmosphere on Sunday night. I'll start with you, Kerry, on this. What is this third time or fourth time? Let's see. They played them in 2018, 2019. It's fourth time, right?
Yeah, it was fourth time. Yeah.
So here we go with Ravens Chiefs Quattro. What do you think about this game and the matchups and just what you expect to see Sunday night?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting, man. I think on the offensive side of the ball, I have some kind of trepidation because they're bringing on Devontae Freeman, and then of course Greg Roman made the comments he made about kind of rotating backs. But I think we're at a point where it's clear that Tyson is a bit more versatile and a step above these other guys, right now. When all the backs started getting added, a lot of people were talking about how they thought Latavius Murray was going to be, the lead guy in short order. And, I like Latavius Murray as a player. I like his physical running style. I like his ability to pass protect. But, like, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that he lost his job to Tony Jones playing behind a much better offensive line than this Ravens offensive line. And then Devontae Freeman was in that same situation, and he got cut before Latavius Murray did. These are, veteran guys that you can trust. Yeah, they can pass protect. They can do some of those things, but they're kind of taking stuff off of the table as far as the upside of this rushing offense. And I think it's going to be important that they continue to lean more on Tyson to be that guy that they can kind of create stuff instead of just getting what's blocked 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Because this running game is going to be important against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are one of those teams that they play the run on the way to the quarterback. They focus on pass defense, and they can be vulnerable against the run. And so with Lamar kind of spearheading this rushing attack, if you got a guy back there that has some juice, that he's handing that ball off to, you can get some things done against this Chiefs front. So offensively, I'm looking at that. On the defensive side of the ball, it's just going to be interesting to see how Wink goes about this. The Chiefs are one of those teams that defenses have tried to like make them play the long game. Keep the deep ball away, two safeties back, make Mahomes be, methodical, with it. And so Wink is not really a methodical, make you wait kind of guy. Like, he wants to force the action. And with McCole Hartman playing more snaps week one than he played, I think all of last season probably. Now you got two home run threats in there at all times, and so you got to pick your poison, man. And like, I don't expect Wink to just sit back the whole game, because that can be dangerous too when you got a guy like Mahomes that can buy time and improv and move things around. But it's a lot on Wink, man. He's gonna have to call a really good game, a really balanced game, and he's gonna have to like really pick his spots well. So that's something I'm going to be looking at very closely, is how he calls the game, and then the snap share of the running backs.
Tough matchup, man. I mean, Mahomes, cheat code, in a different way than Lamar. Lamar's a cheat code too, but in a different way. They play a different style, but both of them make it extremely hard to defend them. And you made, the case for Mahomes. I mean, you can blitz him, and he's in a lot of cases inviting that because he knows how to beat it. He knows where to beat it. You can sit back in zone. For the most part, he's shown, maybe in some of his early starts early on is that first year as a full-time starter, maybe not as much, but I think since then he's shown like, hey, I'll dink and dunk it if that's what you want me to do. Those guys, man, when they hit that level, when they already have the explosive playmaking ability, big playmaking ability, but then they're also willing to go and play um, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning mode. It's hard to defend those guys, man. This is extremely hard to defend those guys. And then with us, with the Ravens, with all the offensive line issues, you've got, Chris Jones. Look, he didn't go to FSU, but I remember when Wink talked about guys on the D line from the FSU crew, and he's like, I'm not from Florida State. Chris Jones is one of those dudes. The U crew up front. He is going to mess some stuff up all across the defensive line up front. And if no slight to Frank Clark either. He's out there on the edge doing work too. So, yeah, you hit on a lot of the reasons for why this is not no small order in front of them. Chris, I'll go to you. I mean, they're getting them at home. Going to have a hometown fans in the stadium. Going to be a great atmosphere compared to what it was last year. What do you think about this matchup and kind of how you see it playing out?
I mean, I would have been nervous if everyone on the Ravens was healthy. So now that a bunch of people are hurt, I'm still nervous, man. But I mean, hopefully we can see them be at least competitive in it. I'm hoping. I think the O line, it's not ideal to lose Ronnie Stanley. It's never ideal to lose, a All Pro tackle. But Villanueva's going to his natural position. That's good. We've seen Makari play right tackle before, so it's not. It isn't where you have someone who's never played the position going out there. It's someone who has experience there. Now, whether he'll excel there or not is yet to be seen. But I'm somewhat comfortable with him there. Um, Now, there's as far as the wide receivers are concerned, Hollywood hasn't practiced this week.
Hmm.
So that'll be a huge blow to the offense because outside of him, there isn't anyone that'll scare you deep. I mean, Duvernay has speed, but he's never proven that he can be a deep option, a guy that can scare the opposing defenses. We have Sammy, who's been reliable, and Mark Andrews, those guys. But without Hollywood, that takes away a lot of things that they can do on offense. And hopefully he can practice tomorrow because that's I don't know. I don't I don't know, man. Because when you miss 2 days straight in practice is normally not a good sign. But on the flip side, for that, it looks like Jimmy's been practicing. So I'm wondering if we'll get Jimmy back after losing Chris Westry this past week. So if they have Jimmy back, that'll be huge because we know Wink could trust Jimmy. Wink knows what Jimmy could do. Jimmy knows how Wink's system works. So let's pray and see. But yeah, I'm nervous, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous.
Who could blame you? I mean, you gave a very very convincing case for why we should feel some of those nerves. You think back to it might have been the 2019 game. I don't think it was last year. Where it was because it was in Kansas City, where Harbaugh talked about it being a possession game. Right? They wanted more possessions than the Chiefs. And I think anytime you can have more possessions than your opponent, it's a place you'd like to be. Now, of course, you want to do something with those possessions, right? You're trying to score. It's not just enough just to have the possessions. You're trying to score points. You're trying to score touchdowns, preferably. But for me, this and this kind of maybe runs counter to the way that the Chiefs play, but um, you guys watch a lot more NBA than me, but to me, this is one of those scenarios where you got a team that likes to get up and down the court, and you got another team who maybe can't quite match that same style, you got to try to slow these boys down. You got to make this a half court game, in my opinion, to try to give
Yeah.
yourself an opportunity to be competitive. Now, that doesn't mean don't be aggressive and take your shots when you have opportunities to take shots. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that if you can kind of get back to some of that 2019 Ravens mode where you're running the ball, controlling the ball, keeping Mahomes over there on the sideline, not making mistakes, converting, when you need to convert, getting points when you need to get points, and just limiting his opportunities. I think that's how you can give yourself, a chance in a game like this, where, honestly, you don't have all your horses. I mean, that's just factual, and so I think you might uh, find yourself in a more competitive position if you're able to kind of play that style. But then again, now we just talked about week to week in the NFL, and you never know. I could be completely wrong. They could come out guns blazing, throwing it all over the place, ripping off long runs.
Yeah,
Who knows? Who
and
knows?
and that's something to factor in too, because right now, I mean, we haven't seen this group, this core, with their backs against the wall very often. So let's see how Lamar responds to this, because when he was at Louisville, he wasn't the favorite going up against Clemson, but we saw his game rise, and he was able to kind of take that and bring his play to a next level. So maybe we'll see that evolution in him this season, where they'll probably be underdogs in more games that they've been in the past.
Could definitely see that. I mean, just with the way things look in terms of the roster, you can definitely see Vegas treating them that way, and probably not having them quite, as a favorite as many times as maybe they have in the past in some of these matchups. But like I said earlier today on Twitter, like, hey, the injury thing is a bummer for sure, but I'm still optimistic because I think anytime you got 8 as your quarterback, you have an opportunity to win a game.
Yeah.
So when he's back there, there's nobody else like him in the league, and so that's going to give you an opportunity. So as long as we got that candle lit, I feel really good about our opportunities to have him out there and to be healthy. And I look forward to the game, man. I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to be exciting. I hope that atmosphere. I'm not going to be there for the game, but I hope that atmosphere is as crazy as I think it's going to be. Because I would love for the Chiefs to have to come into that and have to deal with the crowd noise and deal with all of that for what that stadium can be when it's really rocking. So um, I hope all of that happens. But um, I think it's a good place to probably go ahead and close this thing out. We look back at the Raiders game. We did a little sneak preview to the Chiefs game. I don't really think there's anything else that we wanted to hit on. Either one of you guys got anything, or you feel like we can land this thing?
Nah,
I think,
I think we're good.
yeah, I think we're good.
Oh man, people aren't gonna believe this, man. We get this thing set in under an hour. They're gonna be like, wait a minute. They get ready to do like another hour, right? They just setting us up. Your eyes and ears do not deceive you. Check the time on the video. Check the
Oh
time. And
no, I do. I have something. Sorry,
oh, go ahead.
I forgot. Let's go on about the draft.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Good
Oh
point.
yeah,
See,
yeah,
there you go, folks. Here we go. You knew we wanted. You knew we wanted. Go ahead, Chris.
No, so there's a quite the discussion going on right now, because a lot of people wanted the Ravens to draft an offensive tackle fairly high. There are some who wanted them to take a tackle later on in the draft. Shout out to Cole Jackson. He was a Stone Forsythe guy, and he did not understand the Ben Mason pick. And in hindsight, that's he has a point. He has a very valid point. But there are some that are saying that the Ravens probably shouldn't have taken Bateman or Owe, and they should have reached for guys like Liam Eichenberg, Sam Cosmi. I'm not part of that group.
Hmm.
I feel like Bateman and Owe, they're just guys that their ceilings and quite possibly their floors are way higher than any of those tackles that were there. The only other tackle that, in my opinion, who I thought should be in that consideration for the first round was Tevin Jenkins, and there were rumors about his back being messed up and that scaring off teams, and he's out for the season because he had to get back surgery. So he was the only guy there that I probably would have considered at those two spots, and he was injured. So outside of him, I don't really see anybody else that I would take over Bateman or Owe. And I feel like we should just put that to rest because it's, I think when we look back in 2, 3 years, we'll see that the Ravens made the right decision with these guys. And even right now, I mean, Bateman, I mean, granted, it was a practice, but it was in front of the lights, in front of the fans. And we saw him just flat out beat Marlon Humphrey for a touchdown. So he was making noise all through camp. Owe, we saw the flashes game one. That guy's going to be special. So I don't think we should jump on and say, oh, they should have drafted this guy. They should have did that. I think we should let this thing play out and trust, what DaCosta is doing. And, just look at the evidence that we have. I mean, it's short. We're not even, 2 games into the season. But from what these guys have put on tape and have showed everybody so far, I believe they've made the right choices.
I'm with you, and I'm going to hold my thoughts because I want to hear from Kerry first. But Kerry, let me go to you. What do you think about this hindsight bias that's going on out there, man?
Yeah, it's a lot of that going around, man, and it's like, the thing with the Ben Mason pick, I can understand people being frustrated about it. But they only have one guy as an option that they can give you to go to, and the guy is not playing. And so when you look at it, my first thing is I'm always going to say is, yeah, I can have my opinion on this, and we put in a lot of work with this. But let me tell you who we don't put in more work than. Eric DaCosta. We don't put in more work than him and his staff. So if they looked at this draft class and say, hey, I don't really identify a tackle in this class, I'm going to take him at his word because, they've shown, year after year, especially in those middle rounds, these rounds that people have been clamoring for, this imaginary tackle that they can't give me the name of that the Ravens should have took. I don't see that guy, and clearly Eric DaCosta didn't see that guy either. So, it's just one of those things, man. People, they see one thing and they want to kind of like latch on to it. All of a sudden, I'm hearing a lot of the Ravens shouldn't have traded Orlando Brown Jr. or they didn't get the proper value for him. Like that's starting to kind of pop back up, and it's just, it's one game, man. Yeah, just relax. It's one game. We don't have to go back and recreate situations. Just because the Ravens lost one game and the offensive line looked kind of shaky. We got a long season left to go to kind of figure all this stuff out.
Yeah, you guys hit on the two biggest things for me. Number one being their draft philosophy in trusting their evaluation, their scouting process, and being true to their board. You have to. We've seen what happens when you don't. Chris, you reminded me about Brashad Perryman. We know what can happen when you get away from your board and you get away from all of that preparation and evaluation process and you reach. So, I mean, just think about that. Think about you have the scouting staff. They're doing all this work on these guys, not just for one season. Yeah, watching these guys 2-3 seasons in some case. And they've done all of this background. They've done all of the tape study. They've gotten all the medical information. We use all of that to assign a grade to each guy, and then we slot all the guys on the board based on those grades. And then the draft is here. We're on the clock. We've got, maybe a couple of guys at that particular draft slot where we're on the clock to select, and we're comfortable with taking one of those guys because we have them graded there. But then we got these offensive tackles that are graded lower. We don't have them at that slot, and we say, you know what? We appreciate all the work that you guys did, right? Scouts, all that stuff you did for the last couple of years, but we're going to scrap all that. And I'm going to go with my gut here. And I'm going to reach around or two for this offensive tackle because I just know better, right? I know you guys did all the leg work, but I know better, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's how bad teams stay bad, right? So I don't think any of us would want them to operate that way. That's not how they've been able to kind of have this run of, relative consistent. People might point out a couple of those down years with Flacco and say not success, competitive years. Let me call it that. I mean, look, they 2 Super Bowls in since 2000. I call it success, but some people might nitpick it. So let's go with competitiveness, right? Consistent competitiveness, having an opportunity to compete for the playoffs every year. And once you get in the dance, who knows what can happen, right? So I don't think anybody would want them to change the process that's led to those kinds of results, just for this other, hey, we need an offensive tackle. We need this player. We need that player. And the other thing I will say about the Ben Mason thing, right? Again, I think the hindsight bias might be even a little bit stronger with that because people are looking at the fact that he didn't make the team, right? He ends up getting cut. He's trying to pass through waivers. He decides to sign with another team. So then it's really easy to say, oh, well, that's a wasted pick. You didn't even make your team. But what you have to consider, and all of this has been reported now, we didn't know it going back to the draft, but it's since been reported that Patrick Ricard had to have shoulder surgery in the offseason. You already know that Nick Boyle's not going to be ready to start the season, right? And we know how important he is to their offense and to their run game in particular as a blocker. Now you're probably losing the second most important blocker, outside of the offensive line. We're talking about non-offensive line positions. The second most important blocker in Patrick Ricard if he's not fully recovered from that offseason shoulder surgery. So you want to go into the season having to replace both of those two guys when you have this guy on your board, you have him graded at that slot, and you say, hey, let's pull the trigger on that. It didn't work out, but I think that they stayed true to their process, and you can respect that. They were thinking about not only staying true to their process, but also probably seeing him as an insurance policy in case Ricard wasn't fully healthy, and it all kind of just lined up. But it didn't work out, and that's how it goes sometimes. So there's no guarantee that if you take whether it's Stone Forsythe or whoever else, that those guys are going to come in and play well or not get injured themselves. So there's just too many what ifs to go back now and say, you should have done this and you should have done that because you've had these injuries and now you're having to fill holes with guys. It just you can play that game forever. And I don't think it gets you anywhere.
Yeah.
And this is not to say like, oh, they made the pick, that it's guaranteed that they're going to be great players because we could see the 2019 draft and that one's not looking so great. So it's not to just blindly say that, whatever DeCosta says, that player is going to be great. It's just that we can look at their process and how they've done things throughout history, like Mike has said, and we see that their formula works. They don't hit on every player, but they're going to have a competitive roster and they're going to build and construct this thing the way that it's been done for the last 25 years. And, I think they've earned that trust where, we see them make these decisions and there's some that we don't agree with. I don't agree with every pick. I don't agree with every move. I don't think they should have released Trent Cannon, but, they have a process. They have a process, and there are going to be opinions out there. But like we said, just give this thing a little bit of time. It's only the first game. We should not be saying they shouldn't have taken Bateman. They shouldn't have taken Oweh. It's let this thing play out a little bit.
Yeah, and Kerry said it too, man. Like nobody is saying that these guys are without fault or that they don't miss. Everybody misses in the draft, and I think you look at the way that Eric DeCosta operates, and you can see based on how he operates, even he acknowledges, kind of the low hit rate because he's constantly trying to acquire more picks.
Yeah.
He wants more opportunities to pick players because he knows that, the hit rate, there's not an exact science to this thing. So the fact that he acknowledges that by how aggressive he is in trying to obtain additional picks and Kerry's point about who puts in more work, him or us, right? We're out there and we're like, hey, look, no, you trust me, right? They need to pick Stone. I don't care about their scouting staff, medical background. You need to listen to me because I'm on Twitter and I watch all 22 You need to listen to me, okay? And I think, Chris, your point is so important because people will hear some of this stuff that we're saying, and all they'll probably take away from it is, oh, they think these guys are perfect. They think these guys never make mistakes. Watch this guys, pick whichever offensive lineman you want out of some of the guys you name. Watch what season he goes on to have, or they look back at the end of the year and say, see, look how he played. See, I told you guys. Again, you can play that hindsight bias game at any point. And the further you play it down the road, when you have an opportunity to see the outcome that you want, the more you win that game when you play it. Doesn't make you right. You're just able to win that game because it's confirmatory, at that point.
Yeah.
So,
Now, if you say this on draft night, that's a whole different story. If you say it on draft night and it's on record, that's a whole different ball game.
Hey, and I don't want to, I don't want to brag or anything. We've had people on this fine podcast who have made predictions on draft night that look pretty good so far. So
yeah,
it is what it is. But yeah, now I'm glad that you brought that up. I know we talked about that before we hit record about wanting to talk about that. It totally slipped my mind. But that is such an important thing right now because that thing is running wild in the streets right now. Feeling that way, and that's fine. People can. You're not trying to change anybody's mind. People can feel however they want to feel. Just offering our perspectives, to that discussion. That's we do here. That's why it's called the Deep Cover Podcast because it's our podcast. So we get to offer our perspectives. So now I'll do another round. Now, do we feel like we can go ahead and wrap this episode up, or is there anything else you guys want to hit on?
Now we're done.
Yeah. Now we're done.
There it is. All right. Well, for Carrie, for Chris, for myself, hey, we appreciate everybody for watching, for listening. As usual, don't forget, remember, I got it right this time. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, to retweet on Twitter, to download the audio pod, all of those things to support and interact with the show. And we're in season 4. I looked at that today. I can't believe we've been doing this for 4 seasons now. It's hard for me to. Yeah, I know, right? It doesn't feel like that. Now, okay, a little behind the curtain here. Full disclosure: the way I number the seasons, they don't coincide with the football season because we had a couple where we kind of like took a break and like in the middle of the season, we started out with like maybe a show or two, and then we took like a multi-week break and we picked it back up. And I was like, well, that's like a new season. So full disclosure, it hasn't been 4 years. It's not what I'm saying, but it's probably been 3 years technically. I think if you want to go by football seasons and years, I think this is our 3rd one, but somehow I numbered it 4. But anyway, just more good stuff ahead. You guys have probably already seen it with some of the things that we're doing with Cole Jackson and Two Guys Watching Football, Denard Melton, the Fire Zone Show, just collaborations all over the place. Looking to do more. Looking to just take this thing, man, to another level. So we appreciate all your support. Keep rocking with us, and we're gonna keep doing our thing and trying to bring you guys good quality content, Ravens discussion, football discussion, life game, maybe most importantly. So until next time, y'all be good, and we'll get at you.
Peace.
These my dollars make it hurt.